Hello and welcome everyone to our 19th virtual panel at PAVE Europe. My name is Guido Di Pasquale. I'm the Managing Director at PAVE Europe, Partners for Automated Vehicle Education. Decarbonization, remove traffic congestion, optimize the overall transport system, and give everyone the access to mobility are some of the challenges that European cities are facing today. And adopting smart, connected, and automated and innovative mobility services and their seamless integration into the existing transport network seems to be a promising solution to those challenges. Today, we want to discuss about the challenges and the opportunities for such seamless integration. And in particular, we want to address how can startups and scale-ups and cities can collaborate more effectively to overcome these barriers? And what solutions are key to ensuring the successful deployment of the AV or CCAM technologies? We also are pleased to talk about an important initiatives where PAVE Europe is involved, the New Mobility Services Community, which is a Civitas initiative, and the upcoming events that this community is organizing, and also to encourage you to be involved and to register to these events. We will have our panelists talking about this community more in detail, so I invite you to follow also this aspect. Our panelists are, let me say, it's an amazing set of experts that will help us in exploring innovation within the cities and how these different solutions can scale up in various regions, knowing the complexity of integrating autonomous vehicle technology into urban environments. So today I'm delighted to welcome the leaders of the New Mobility Services Community and CCAM experts from cities and industry. We have with us Peter Staelens, Head of Mobility at Eurocities. Hello, Peter.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
We have Nathalie Teer, Strategic Affairs Lead at Easymile and also a PAVE Europe board and funding member. Hello, Nathalie.
Hi, everyone.
We have Janneke, Brouwer, Practice Lead Co-Create at the New Mobility Services. Hello, Janneke.
Hi, everyone.
And Edwin Mermans, Senior Advisor, International Affairs at Noord-Brabant in the Netherlands. Hello, Edwin.
Hello, good afternoon.
So let me explain a bit how we organize our virtual panel today. We will start with usual introduction by each one, of course, but then we will go deep into this initiative, the New Mobility Services Community by Edwin and Janneke. Then Peter will give us a perspective from the city and also will give us an overview of the outcome from the SHOW project, which is a lighthouse project in Europe regarding autonomous vehicles. And Nathalie will talk about Easymile and especially what Easymile is doing in the urban context and how it fits with the topic of today. And then at the end, we will have a panel discussion. And I also invite the audience to participate and to ask questions through the chat box. So with this, let me start with our panelists. If you can introduce yourself, give a brief overview of what you do, what your organization is, and why you are in this space, and especially in the autonomous vehicle space. So we can start with Janneke, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Hi everyone. So my name is Janneke Brouwer. I work for Teco. It's an innovation acceleration company, and in my role at Teco, I work a lot with Edwin, with the province of Brabant, and also with NMS. And it started all a couple of years ago when I started working for Mobility Lab, which was a startup program based in the Netherlands, focused on helping startups prove that whatever they could do, whatever mobility service or product they had, that it would work in real life. And what we really learned there is that pilots are very nice. Startups need them to show that they can do what they promise. But after that, they need to be able to scale up and to get past the pilot phase and to build strong collaborations with cities, maybe other companies, but also with public authorities and organizations. So last year, Edwin and I we were in touch again, and I did a research for the NMS community. We'll talk more about it later. But it was really much about the question on how can we as NMS help strengthen the connections between cities and mobility scale-ups. And that also applies to autonomous vehicle scale-ups and scale-ups in this sector. We really believe it's important to help them because we see that those collaborations between cities on the one hand or public authorities on the one hand and scale-ups on the other hand do not often succeed. And if we want to fasten and accelerate the deployment of new mobility services, which we want, then we need to improve that. And we researched and we tried to find the reasons why it's not working out right now or not as good as we would like to. And this fall, we are hosting a couple of events with the goal to improve that. And we'll talk about that a lot more later this session.
Thank you, Edwin.
Microphone, yes. My name is Edwin Mermans. I'm doing international affairs in the mobility department of the province of Noord-Brabant in the Smart Race program. But the main reason why I'm sitting here is that I chair the new mobility service community, part of Civitas, where the main goal is deployment of new mobility services in an urban context. But I'll tell a little bit more just later.
Thank you, Edwin and Peter.
Yes, so I'm Peter Staelens. I'm head of mobility at Eurocities, and Eurocities is a network of more than 200 major European cities. So I'm leading the mobility team, but we have, let's say, a kind of transversal structure. We also have teams working on climate, environment, social affairs, economic development, and digital development. So we try to let's say connect all these domains, which is a bit of a challenge, considering that even in the domain of urban mobility, there are so many challenges and topics to tackle. And personally, I've always been the one following a bit more closely developments around intelligent transport systems, data, digitalization, and automation. So in a few moments, I'll be happy to talk in a bit more detail about what I've been exactly doing there.
Thank you, Peter and Nathalie.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Nathalie Teer. I'm the strategic affairs lead at Easymile. Easymile is a, I guess, pretty well-known software company that provides software for autonomous vehicles. I'll say a bit more about that later. And I'm basically responsible for everything that is political strategy and regulatory topics, national and so France, Germany, and Europe. Happy to be here.
And thank you, Nathalie. So let's start with Edwin and Janneke. If you can give us an overview of the new mobility services community, how it started, why it was started, what are the objectives, and what do you expect from this community. If you can talk about also your point of view of the CCAM or the autonomous vehicle, how they fit into this community and the new mobility services, because we know that autonomous vehicles are seen, especially in Europe, as mobility services that consider new, at least we expect them. So yeah, the floor is yours. If you can tell us about this community.
Yeah, I will start and tell a little bit about the context and what we want to achieve, and then Janneke will go more into detail specifically on the 4 events that we're organizing in October and November, diving into this collaboration between scale-ups and cities. The main aim is, the name is of course New Mobility Service Community. That has a reason. We are a community of government, industry, researchers and citizens. And industry, we mean large industry and also small startup scale-ups, SMEs. The main aim is deployment of new mobility services in an urban context mainly. The main goal is make cities better. So we see cities are confronted with all kinds of challenges in terms of congestion, lack of space, quality of air, etc. So deployment of new mobility services enabled by CCAM and a whole wide variety of on-demand, shared, connected, sustainable mobility services. Deployment is part of the solution of making these cities better. So it's not a technology push story, but just aiming at improving this urban environment. We are now coordinating this partnership since 8-9 years. Peter is also involved. He's already much longer involved than me in NMS. Since 2 years now, we are part of Civitas. We are really happy with that because that brings us closer to the cities. Our main aim is really to create impact on a wide variety of ways. So there are all kinds of activities that we have. And for this year, we have, Janneke will tell more about that, we have this focus on this wicked problem of the collaboration between cities and scale-ups. We all know the scale-up usually have a lot of innovative potential, so we really need to scale up for deployment. On the other hand, cities usually prefer to work with larger industry. That's easier. And for scale-ups, it's really complicated sometimes to deal with all the regulations and tender procedures from cities. So that's why, after consultation, decided to dive into that. Last thing I will say before I give the word to Janneke is that one of our mantras is we're not going to do what is already done by other networks in Europe. We're not going to copy what Eurocities is doing or what Echtico is doing or what Panelists is doing. So that's also why we have a core team of 11 people from Eurocities and Polis and Echtico and Babel Smart Cities, etc., just to coordinate the fact that we're doing exactly what is not done anywhere else yet. So that is what Janneke found out last year, that this needs to be done. Yeah, I can talk much more about that, and Peter also, but this is the essence.
Edwin, how do you see the autonomous vehicles fitting into this?
They are crucial because, of course, we need all kinds of shared mobility concepts like shared electric cars and bicycles and e-steps and things like that. But for the last mile, autonomous mobility will be crucial for all kinds of last mile solutions. It can be autonomous buses or autonomous small vehicles. Valet parking, the whole CCAM will be important on all aspects of this last mile.
Thank you, and Janneke.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Edwin, for the first introduction. Yes, so NMS is a big network with a lot of organizations being part of it, with a lot of people with a lot of knowledge, with a lot of network. And when they came up with the question, okay, so on the one hand, we want to further, or we want to accelerate the deployment of new mobility services. We want to do more with scale-ups. We want to do more with cities. What is it then that we should do that is not being done elsewhere? And it also allows us to make use of our unique selling points, whatever, our unique values. We did a research into that last year. And one of the questions I asked to both cities and mobility scale-ups and startups is, what is now bothering you, or what is now preventing you from becoming successful? And when doing so, we heard a lot of different answers, but we could actually distill between those different answers a couple of categories, so to say, of barriers that people encounter or that they walk into. So they mentioned network, for instance, that for a lot of scale-ups, it's very difficult to find the right person in a specific city. But the other way around, it also seems to be pretty difficult. That's something I did not expect. But for a city, it can also be pretty difficult to find out who is the person I need to talk to if I want to be in touch with scale-up X or scale-ups Y. So network was the thing that we heard a lot. Bureaucracy all over Europe is a reason why it's hard to get in touch with the right person, or to get from being in touch with someone to actually coming to a collaboration. Making it official, so to say, was mentioned a lot. And then we often hear about tender procedures, that they are very difficult, that they're very large, very big, very, well, they sometimes make it all, they scare off scale-ups that they don't even want to try. And it's really something that was mentioned a lot. And another example is that it's also mentioned that very many cities like to do a lot of pilots, but then they kind of stay into in this pilot phase. But for a scale-up, it's of course also important to develop beyond the pilot stage and to get larger collaboration. So those are a couple of examples we got from barriers that are now being experienced all over Europe, and that are also an answer to the question that many scale-ups seem to, and startups also seem to ask themselves is, okay, so I'm being pretty successful now in my home country. Maybe I have contact with 4 or 5, I don't know how many cities, and that's working well. It should not be that hard to now scale up and do the same trick in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in all over Europe. And it doesn't prove to be that simple. So then we ask ourselves, what can we do to improve this? Because of course, many people have tried all sorts of things, but that hasn't been very helpful yet, or at least there are still people struggling. Well, what can we do to prevent this or solve this, basically? Then we came to, well, what is it then that makes NMS special? What is it that we have? And then we came to, well, we have this network, we have this group of special people with special knowledge. How can we make use of that? We have to bring people together physically. So that's why we came up with a sort of Europe tour that we're going to do this fall. And we're going to visit 4 events. We'll send you more information about this later. I'm just going to name them now. You don't have to write them down. You'll get the info later. But we're going to kick off next month in Parma at the Civitas Forum at the 3rd and the 4th of October. Then on the 8th of October, we're going to Brussels to the European Week of Regions and Cities. So that's both in the beginning of October. And then we're moving on to the 3rd event in the beginning of November, on the 5th of November at the Smart City Expo in Barcelona. And we'll finish up our tour at the 4th event in Karlsruhe at the Polish Conference at the 28th of November. And the idea is that we're going to have some sort of a relay. So we're going to kick off in Parma, and people who are going to visit us there, they can share all about the things that they run into, the barriers they are confronted with, and we're going to try and come up with solutions to that. And we're also going to try and build a community with the people that are joining us, because we believe that we can find some sort of a group of pioneers who are, well, frustrated with the way things are right now, and who have energy and willingness to help us overcome these challenges and to go see and find what are the solutions with the most potential, and how can we make them reality maybe this year or otherwise next year. So that's going to be in these 4 events. And I think I should finish up right. Yeah, I can tell about more about this later. You can inform us, but we would be very happy if we can welcome a lot of scale-ups, a lot of cities, but also other people who are in some way involved in building these kind of collaborations. It would be very valuable to have you there, to hear your voice, to hear your experiences, and to find ways to overcome this together.
Thank you, Janneke. We are showing a slide with your contact information and a link. I think for those who want to join and contact you to join these events.
Exactly. And on the LinkedIn page, you find already more information about the 4 events and the registration form, also on Twitter, but you can send us an email for a personal invite.
Thank you both. Now I would like to move to Peter to have the perspective of the cities, because Janneke and Edwin talked about the importance of the network and bringing together the scale-ups and the cities. So what is your experience, mentioning also the large projects where you were involved in, like Show, of course, and especially the lesson learned, because I think from what you have done in the Show project and probably in other initiatives now in the last 4, 5, 6 years, you have learned a lot, and you are able to provide some recommendations or some advices to those who would like to start, especially autonomous vehicles, pilots or services, or really deploying services. Isn't that true, Peter?
Yeah, there's a lot I want to say, so stop me when I'm taking too much time. But for Eurocities, our work on automation actually already started somewhere in 2008, when automated vehicle systems were still defined as personal rapid transit and group rapid transit. And when I look back at the projects we had then and the systems we worked with, for example, in Rotterdam, in Rivian Business Park, or at London Heathrow, these systems look so primitive. And it's amazing how fast the vehicles and the technology and digital components have been changing. In 17 years, it's crazy to see. It became really a hot topic for us in 2017, when there was a big buzz in the automotive industry, and there were very high expectations about quick deployment of automated vehicles. And the predictions were then like, in 3 to 5 years, there will be so many self-driving cars on the roads that it will be the new normal. Now, I've always been a bit a skeptical person. It's about new hypes, new trends. So I said to myself, look, we can develop an opinion on that, but even better, we need to get involved in large-scale demonstration projects, so we can really understand how mature the technology is, what kind of benefits automated vehicles can bring, what kind of challenges, and where we can find the optimum value for all stakeholders involved. So not only cities, but also industries, operators, citizens. So that first large-scale demonstration project we got involved in is the Show project. It's a unique kind of project. I think it's the largest demonstration project, I think, worldwide, in terms of fleet of shared automated vehicles that are integrated in the urban transport system. So we don't talk about a fragmented pilot in a business area with the shuttle, but really about fleets across 17 actual demonstration sites and another 17 follower sites. So that can give you a really representative idea on what are the common, let's say, potential benefits and challenges of automated vehicles. And we've been testing automated buses, automated shuttles, automated vans, robotaxis, small delivery robots, so anything you can imagine. I think we only didn't have drones, but those, I'm sure there are other projects for that. And the idea was that through the 4.5 years of the project, and we're now actually coming to the final weeks of the project, and we have our final event in Tampere, so one of the leading demonstration sites, at the end of this month. And so we we have been going with these 17 demonstration sites through the same process, starting from the permit acquisition to preparing the infrastructure, testing the vehicle without passengers, and then finally putting them on public roads with actual users. And that was such an interesting experience. And as Eurocities, we were in charge of what is called the demonstration board. So it means that we needed to keep the overview of how all the different demonstration sites were progressing in setting up their pilots and how they were doing in terms of developing the technology and engaging users and so on. You can imagine we have learned a lot, too much to mention in, let's say, in 5 minutes. But what I'm particularly proud of is that we look a lot at robotaxi pilots outside of Europe. For example, commercially licensed services for CCAM in China or in the US. And we always feel a bit intimidated when looking from Europe because they seem to move much faster. But what I think we are doing really well in Europe is that we are doing this in a really much more complicated setting and really integrating CCAM services with other transport modes in cities and integrated in the wider transport system. Also really getting the buy-in from users, getting the buy-in from local ecosystems, local industries, emergency services, decision makers, local practitioners, administrations. So I think we have a very holistic approach to this. And I think step by step, it may look like we go a bit slower, but I think our approach is more solid. And I think we have a better understanding of what is possible with automated vehicle fleet in complex urban settings. So that's for show. I will post a link to the project in the chat. I also need to mention that we did a lot of work on integration of automated vehicle systems in sustainable urban mobility planning processes as well. And what I'm particularly proud of is the work we have done on the regulatory dimension of automated vehicles. So we did very detailed analysis of the state of play in terms of regulation at international, at European, at national, at regional level. And we ended up at the local level as well, where we designed a set of 36 soft regulatory interventions for cities to prepare for the arrival of, and again, I focus on commercially operated fleet of automated vehicles, how cities can avoid, let's say, the risks and the challenges, and just have the optimum results from these new technologies. And there we looked a lot at what happened, for example, with the arrival of ride sharing. I think most of you will remember a bit of the chaos and the controversy with the arrival of companies like Uber and Lyft in Europe. And what that caused in terms of consternation and disruption. The same for shared bicycle systems, e-scooters. So we learned a lot from, let's say, the regulatory approach towards other new mobility services. And we kind of projected that with some, let's say, specific approaches onto connected cooperative automated vehicles. And when I go into that direction, I can talk for another hour, but I will stop here and I will put a link to the project and the deliverables in the chat. And just to conclude that simultaneously with Eurocities, we're also involved in a coordination and support act funded by the European Union, where we are part of a community that supports the CCAM partnership. And so that's a big, let's say, big grouping of various types of stakeholders that are driving the agenda on CCAM in Europe. And we provide support in terms of policy recommendations and, for example, also, developing a common evaluation methodology. And I will stop here, and I will also put a link to that project, to the FAME project in the chat. So after this event, you can have a close look by yourself.
Thank you, Peter. And we will share also all the links in our YouTube channel under the video, so that people can
excellent. Yeah,
have an
thank you.
access to all the links and the interesting initiatives and documents you would like to share. And it's also interesting to listen to your comparison between the new mobility services, traditional ones, or well, I don't know if we can call them traditional, but the scooters and on-demand transport with autonomous vehicles, and what we can learn from the introduction of these services in the AV space. But now I would like to go to Nathalie and to have the industry perspective. So Easymile as a key player in this space, in the CCAM and autonomous vehicles, and also a pioneer, let me say. So I think it's very important to understand your perspective, what you are doing, all the initiatives, besides the fact that you are a member and board member of PAVE Europe, and also how you are collaborating with the cities and the other stakeholders, as Edwin and Janneke outlined as an important aspect.
Yep. Thank you so much. So first of all, I'd like to say that I resonate a lot with especially what Edwin and Janneke found out in their study, and I think this will show a bit in my presentation now. So just for those of you who don't know Easymile, Easymile is a French software company. So this is basically our position in the value chain. We focus, or the heart of what we do is software. We do have, a few other solutions like fleet management, etc. But the heart of what we do is software to automate vehicles, and we partner with manufacturers to then automate their vehicles. So this is what Easymile does. Easymile has been around for 10 years now. So it was founded in 2014. So, we've had a bit of an experience in that whole industry until now, which shows, and, some very pretty stats. We've driven over, I think, by now it's 1.4 million kilometers autonomously on roads. That means, level 3 and upwards. We've deployed over 200 shuttles globally. We're also in the logistics business, so there's a lot of experience there. And I will share a couple of learnings we've had in the past 10 years now through all that we've done. And through all the project we've been involved into. So I picked out a couple. I mean, there's more big funded project we've been involved with or in, and we actually led. But I picked out a few that I think for this topic are super interesting. So to start with, the one at the upper left, CalRide, is one of the first major funded projects we did in Germany on public roads, where we deployed 30 kilometers of, or that was actually the largest deployment that we've ever did. So it was 30 kilometers of deployment in Bavaria with a fleet of 6 shuttles, and they're on demand, and they're actually running right now still. In the small town of Kelheim in Bavaria, which is a very interesting case actually, because it's a tiny, it's not a village, it's a tiny city with basically no public transportation. So they set up this on-demand fleet, and it's a mixed fleet of our shuttles mixed with, regular on-demand shuttles. And we basically took that to the next level, which is the SafeStream project, where we develop the what in Germany is called technical supervision. So basically a supervision to take the or scalable fleets to level 4 driving. We were involved in the show project. I'm not going to dive deeper into that because that was mentioned earlier. And we had a couple of few very big projects also in France, where, for example, we partner with Renault to develop a level 4 shuttle. And then another European project we were involved in is Award, which just came to an end, but that's more focused on logistics. So as you can see, you know, there's a lot of experience right here, and yeah, now I'm just going to focus a bit on the learnings we've taken out of the 10 years of experience and all those projects we were involved in. Oh, that should say 10 years, not 9. Anyways, so I think there's 6 major learnings, and these are the 3 first ones. So we know that there's a real demand for autonomous vehicles. That might sound quite naive or, you know, obvious, but I don't think it is, because this whole industry started as, you know, a hope to make mobility better, to make things more efficient and all of that. But until a couple of years ago, it wasn't clear whether there was a real demand for it or not. And I think that was one of the key learnings we had. There is a real demand for autonomous mobility, be it in the passenger transportation or in the goods transportation sector. But when we talk about autonomous, and that's the second learning, it doesn't mean that it needs to be 100% autonomous in the sense that there's no human involved. So what we see is that there will always be a human in the loop somewhere along the value chain. So be it supervision, be it the maintenance of the vehicles, the fleet management, et cetera, et cetera. So it will never be, in that sense, 100% autonomous. And I think that's a second really big learning that we had. The third one is that we think that companies need to take, or stakeholders, not only companies, but stakeholders need to take a use case approach. So you can't just, you know, that may sound very obvious too, but you can't just take, you know, autonomous vehicles and put them anywhere and hope for them to work, which I think happened a couple of times already over the past years. But you really need to find a case where there is a demand and where people actually do have a need for autonomous mobility. So that is very critical for the success of autonomous vehicles to actually really, you know, do their job and work and actually provide a service. 3 more learnings. The fourth being that safety is really key. This is why Easymile has always, you know, focused on safety by design, because we see that safety and reliability are not only interconnected, but it's really something that we get a feedback not only from communities and users, but also from our clients, that, you know, if the technology is not safe and certified safe, then there is no real demand for it. So safety, certifiable safety, is really at the core of what this technology needs to do, even though sometimes, and that is something, you know, that needs to be mentioned too, it's at the detriment of performance. Then, and this is, you know, what we're doing here is that collaborations between all parties involved is really, really key. So for, you know, Janneke and Edwin and everyone involved, pushing that, and PAVE to pushing that collaboration between all and in this ecosystem is really so important, because if only a few players do that, then, you know, it will not work. And then last but not least, educating, and that doesn't mean only the public, but really also people working in that domain that, you know, will at some point be involved in the process, need to be, and the clients, etc. We educate our clients as well on this technology, for them to actually understand, you know, what this means and how this will impact them. So these are the key learnings that we've had, but as we all know, there's still challenges ahead. And I tried to pick out three main ones that I think are the most pressing. So first of all, we see that there's this historically grown and established industry structures that are to a certain extent hindering the development of autonomous vehicles, because the one thing is to have the software that is able to, automate vehicles. The other part is that you need to have the platforms that are actually able to be automated on a scale. And not talking about retrofit solutions, I'm talking about really scalable vehicle platforms, and the willingness to invest in the development and the production of those. And we see that with the industry structures we have especially in Europe at the moment, that is extremely challenging. The second being that, and we've heard that earlier, that still I know that we have the European regulatory framework for type approval, et cetera, and that is great. But we do see that on a national level and even on a local level, there's no harmonized regulatory framework and no harmonized implementation, which makes scalable, or the scalability, extremely challenging and merely impossible sometimes. And the third one, and that is something that I would like, the industry to talk about more, is the question of refinancing, especially in the context of urban mobility. So we all have this, this dream and this hope and this vision or mission, or however you want to call it, of automated public mobility. And this is why we're all here. But the question of who is actually financing this and who is willing to put millions and sometimes even billions of euros into this and to actually make it a business model is still unanswered. And this is why we see that the industry itself is, I would say, even collapsing in Europe in terms of companies that, we talked about scale ups, et cetera, in terms of companies that are actually developing the technology, because there's just no business case right now and there's no refinancing mechanism. So this is really something that is extremely key to work on, I'd say yesterday, to make this work. So yeah, that's it, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathalie. I think we can stay on this important messages that you had at the end of your presentation, and I would like to ask all the other panelists to react to it, because we are talking about how to overcome these barriers, and Nathalie mentioned some important ones, especially from the point of view of Easymile, of the industry side, technology provider side. So how can we incentivize or strengthen this collaboration in order to succeed in in the deployment and in scaling up? Because here the question is how to scale up and move from pilots to large scale deployment of the vehicles. Who wants to start?
I can say something, and we are limited, and I mean, New Mobility Service community, of course, we are limited because we are talking from the local perspective. But it would be a good start if we, as scale-ups and companies like Easymile, with the cities, start and work together on the challenges that are there on the urban level, and then together also try to address other challenges. So that is my first remark. So Nathalie, after this you will receive an invitation to join us in Brussels and Karlsruhe if you're not already there, because we need also companies like you and your story on the table, which has some overlap with others, but together and all the brains together we can really work on solutions. But as I said, our focus is the urban context. So that might, for Easymile, of course, not be enough, but at least it's a start.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Edwin.
No, Peter or Janneke.
Yeah, I was triggered by some of the things that Nathalie said. There's indeed this enormous policy incoherence, which we also identified, and yeah, there's for example, there's recently adopted European legislation about the type approval process. And that opens a door, but it opens the door to specific use cases. So that's let's say barrier number one, and then barrier number two, it's only allowing for limited series. That's barrier number two, and then that needs to be transposed to different national contexts, legislative contexts, and we had, let's say, some very interesting experiences. For example, when it's just about getting an exemption or a permit for public road testing, so only for testing across Europe, there will need to be a driver. So you can already ask yourself how much, let's say, does that correspond with with the image we have of automated vehicles. So there's a need to further harmonize between all these levels. And when I said that we worked on local regulation, actually it was more about soft regulation and not hard legislation. And for the cities, it's more about creating a level playing field for different operators and making sure that some, let's say, environmental safety, inclusivity standards are met. So it's not about creating new barriers. I think on the contrary, what cities are trying to do is really to create these ecosystems for innovation. And they set actually the wider framework for new mobility services through their sustainable urban mobility planning processes. And also there, through European regulation, there are new requirements now for urban nodes. So all urban nodes in Europe need to have a sustainable urban mobility plan. And we strongly advocated for cities to also consider the dimension of CCAM in the development of these plans. The other thing that cities are also doing more and more, and it's something we also actively encouraged in the show project, is to set up these horizontal partnerships, horizontal and vertical, let's say vertical in terms of solid, harmonized multi-level governance, but also, let's say, really an open, transparent dialogue with new mobility providers, new mobility technology providers, new services, new operators, because that also helps, to understand each other and to identify the opportunities and where certain barriers at local level need to be removed. The other thing that really triggered me, Nathalie, was what you said about the specific demand. If there's one thing I got out from the show project, and also from looking at other demonstration projects, it's indeed, you need to find a use case that works in a given context. If I look, for example, again, San Francisco, there's a company putting robotaxis on the street, not, let's say, fully optimized. So we hear a lot about the successes. If you're in touch with the transport authority in San Francisco, you hear very, very different stories, lots of complications, let's say, lots of incidents as well. The other thing is there that the scaling up went too fast. So if the new mobility services providers and the local authorities from the beginning have this open, transparent dialogue and do incremental steps, you avoid the point where suddenly everything breaks down because the system doesn't appear to be solid enough to be deployed at the larger scale. And then finally, and there I stop, it's also indeed what the user wants. What we have learned from show is that it's not enough to just put the new service on the road and say, okay, it's there, use it. It's really something that needs to be stimulated and promoted together between these local partners, because it's a new service. The users may not understand how to use it. They may not understand what the purpose is. And it helps if there's some campaigning and awareness raising that is done together.
And that's the role of PAVE, actually.
And that's the role of PAVE.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Janneke or Nathalie, do you want to react?
I don't know if you want to react already, Nathalie. I can give you...
No, you go ahead. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I must say I'm not that at home in the whole automated world actually, so I'm learning a lot. And I also wrote down that it's so interesting that there is a demand, and then also there is, you say we know that there's a demand, but there's also a lack of harmonized regulatory frameworks. There's a lack of financing, and I was thinking that's so interesting. And is it then maybe something that needs like political help? Is that the key? Maybe that's something you've tried already, but I'm also curious what has already been done and didn't work out, or are there other things that are going on right now? How are you dealing with it at the moment?
So yeah, I think that's a really good point. So of course, there's no easy answer to this, unfortunately. So I think, it's on various different levels. Of course, there is a political role or a policy role to play in this, because if, we want to decarbonize our cities, if we want to have better mobilities in the cities and in the rural areas, even though we're talking urban context here now, but rural areas are super important too. And that's from the use case type of sustainability perspective. But also, if we want to be competitive in the technology sector, then definitely, to me at least, this is a strategic sector that we need to invest in, where we need to shape policies and funding that actually makes this financially sustainable. And then there's a second part where, and I think this is right now a very pressing issue for startups and scale-ups in general in Europe, is that the access to venture capital and actually financing mechanisms for that are not policy related is key for the technology development and for this to actually be able to to work. And then, as I said, there's a third one, and that's not a very tangible one, but still, what I mentioned about the industry structures that we find is that we're still stuck in the mobility sector. We're still stuck in very old school type of business models, where it is not a business model to license, for example, software to transport operators, because the moment you do, first of all, there's no tender mechanisms for that. And the moment you actually license your software and you update it, the depreciation in your books goes down, and you need to start from scratch, which just makes it economically for both sides unsustainable. And this is apart from all the vehicles we're talking about, and everything we need to do there. So I think what you found in your studies about the tender mechanisms, and that's for all over Europe, we need to rethink that as well. And we need to get out of those old school mechanisms that just, they work for the past, and they work for everything we've done over the past 50 to 60 or 100 years, but they won't work for the future. And this is something, and this is the last sentence I was going to say about, is why the robotaxis are unfortunately the real business model here, because you're not bound to these types of mechanisms, because you can actually have a real business model here that that refinances it. And this goes back then to all the venture capitalists, et cetera, because once you find an investor and you can actually prove to them that there's an actual return on invest because you have a scalable business model, then all the other things, I'm not saying it goes away, but it makes things a lot easier. And this is where we're really stuck on so many different levels. And I have I have a lot of ideas, but I have no real easy answer to all of that, unfortunately.
That's good. Then we still have a problem to chew on. And innovative procurement will be one of the topics in Brussels, also with people from the Commission there. So I really expect to have a good discussion about this topic there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. This can be the outcome of this discussion. Maybe in a few months can be the subject for a new virtual panel. With
I mean, the ambition is, of course, to have all the solutions by the end of this year.
Yeah, because I was tempted to ask if you had in mind any measures or actions or even solutions to that, or at least to improve this collaboration, because we started with Janneke about collaboration and the importance. You said that it's even difficult to find the right contact and the right person in both sides. So from the authority side, the city side, and the industry side. So how to at least to improve that, because it seems that creating a network could be a good solution.
Yeah.
But have you other ideas?
When I first found out that those are part of the barriers that people face, I thought, well, that's very practical. I thought it was going to be more complicated than that, but apparently many of the barriers people face are very practical. And then I also heard some startups tell me if I talk to a city, it's usually because they are going to issue a tender, and then there's an opportunity for me to meet with them and to talk about this tender. But it would be so great if I could talk to cities in other instances and just get to know them and just to know what is their world about, what do they need, what do we need, just to have another way of getting to know each other. And that might seem like very low-hanging fruit and very easy, but it's not happening right now. So I think that one of the solutions might just be getting together in the same room, being physically together and meeting each other. And then there's also a lot of other ideas I have, but I think it's really not about what I assume or what we assume, but because I know a lot of scale-ups and startups, and I know a lot of cities, but I'm not one myself. So I really think that we need to hear it firsthand from them and let them hear it from each other, and then realize, oh, this is not just something I suffer from or I come across, but this is something people experience. And then I hope that they also kind of get confidence, like, okay, so there are more like me, and if we join together and if we join our forces and we become a community or something, and we are really going to try and to support that community from forming, then we can actually change something. Because of course we have like big ambitions, and I don't think that next year we will have changed the European tender policy, procedures, things like that. But maybe we can make a crack in something and we can get something going. And then I think that Edwin and I would already be very happy if we achieve something like that. But the most important is that we get this movement going who says, like, I'm going to be part of this, and I'm willing to invest some time, some energy, and my passion into this. And we want to make that tangible in a way.
Well, thank you for the work you are doing in this direction.
You're welcome. I really like it.
Peter, you want to say something?
Yeah, I might have the silver bullet because at Eurocities we are managing a contract for European Commission, DG Move and ESMEA, a project called Big Buyers Working Together. And it's exactly about setting up joint procurement communities on many different topics, because you can imagine there are many different services and things that cities need to procure. But at this moment, so we are looking into a community of best practice in the domain of mobility. the challenge is a bit defining the specific scope, because if it's just about mobility, good luck with getting the right profiles there together. But obviously, I will let you all know if the scope of that community becomes clear, because I would say the Big Buyers platform would be exactly that kind of environment where all the stakeholders can meet and make progress together.
Thanks, Peter. I would like to pick up one or two questions from the audience before we close. One is quite interesting one and a recurring one maybe, and it's about car ownership and autonomous shared mobility. So with the cost of car ownership becoming higher, a luxury that many can no longer afford, autonomous electric shared mobility is well placed to offer more affordable monthly annual subscription models, and will probably be the successful business model going forward. What's your reaction to that, or to that statement or question to you? Is it because it's we're talking about new mobility services, so shared mobility. The idea here is to improve our cities, the livability of our cities, but also from the business model point of view. Is it something that we could expect, or it's so difficult for people to change their behavior, to change the mindset? Peter, probably this is a topic that you...
Yeah. It's a very good question. I think it's still a bit assumption-based that we will arrive at this point where, let's say, these vehicles will be, in a technological sense, 100% safe and reliable enough for authorities and individuals to have full trust. And then all the legal barriers need to be removed. But we, for example, have also seen, because it's also about mobility as a service. And mobility as a service has been one of these other domains where we expected revolutionary things to happen. But in the end, there are many things holding that development back. It's willingness of people to share instead of own. It's also having trust between different operators and solution providers. It's agreeing on distributing the revenues and the risks. It would be an ideal scenario, and even more ideal if we go for pooled services. So for, let's say, dispatching algorithms that would make sure that it's more shuttles than individual used robot taxis, and it's more pooled use of CCAM. So I see a bit, I see some critical contextual conditions, but I would fully be behind the scenario otherwise.
Thank you, Peter, for answering this question. And we are at the end of this very interesting virtual panel. I enjoyed it a lot. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel. So for those who could not attend, they will be able to listen to you and the discussion, the debate that we had today, and also to have access to the links and to the information to join the NMS initiative and the results of SHOW project, and what Easymile is doing and deploying, and also the challenges that Nathalie highlighted today. So thank you very much for joining us. Janneke, Nathalie, Peter, Edwin, I hope to see you soon, and I hope to see all our attendees soon in the next virtual panel.